Franz Schubert remains one of the most beloved composers of the classical era. Today we're going to have a look at 5 facts about Schubert which aren't commonly known. Number 1. This famous youth portrait isn't really him. This sketch by Schubert's friend Kupelwieser has often been cited as an early depiction of the composer and has even made it onto various Schubert album covers over the years. In fact, the portrait doesn't show Schubert at all, but a young doctor named Philipp Karl Hartmann, who was a distant associate of the Schubert cycle and a mutual acquaintance of Schubert and Kupelwieser. Number 2. The stereotype of having been ugly and fat is simply wrong. In fact, Schubert wasn't even all that short. At 157 centimeters or 5'2", he stood only marginally shorter than the average man at the time, who would have been 164 centimeters or 5'4". If you compare these figures to today's average height in Europe, this becomes particularly evident. As for the other allegation of having been ugly, this plaster mask was taken off Schubert's face when he was around 28 years old. It was probably made by painter Wilhelm August Rieder, who also painted this famous watercolor. Schubert's contemporaries considered it to be the most true-to-life portrait of the composer. Number 3. Schubert was quite critical of and acquainted with Beethoven. It is often claimed that Schubert was an ardent admirer of Beethoven, but this is only half the truth. Schubert harshly criticized and renounced some of Beethoven's late and more dissonant works. He did respect Beethoven's skill as a composer, but this admiration was entirely mutual. Beethoven's reading material in his dying days consisted largely of Schubert's Lieder, for which Beethoven had nothing but the highest praise. The young composer was also one of the last people to privately visit Beethoven before his death in 1827. Number 4. He was a voracious reader. Schubert's love for poetry is widely known and recorded in his 600+ vocal compositions, but his personal notes also reveal a good amount of philosophical thought. Schubert's favorite author was Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, of whose works he read not only the poetry, but the novels and plays as well. Amusingly, Schubert also indulged in a literary guilty pleasure, namely adventure novels written by American writer James Fenimore Cooper. Number 5. Schubert was the first successful self-employed composer. Contrary to popular belief, Schubert didn't spend most of his life as an unrecognized genius. Many of his works were held in wide acclaim across Europe starting as early as 1820, when the composer was only 23 years old. In fact, Schubert was the first composer who managed to carve a living out of the sales of his sheet music alone, a feat which not even Mozart and Beethoven had accomplished. This concludes our list of 5 secrets about Franz Schubert. Is there any composer you'd like to see featured in this series? Let us know in the comments below. For more videos like this, feel free to subscribe to PRESTISSIMO. Bis bald, a presto, and see you soon!